And hello again, and here we are back in my drive for the next episode about my Kawasaki Z650B restoration project. So this week I want to try and make the bike live again by fitting the modified wiring harness back on the bike. So I've modified it because I've now fitted different handlebar switches. I've also got a different rear brake. This is from a Kawasaki ZR7S, along with a few other small changes. So I've now unwrapped the original wiring harness, removed all the old tape that wasn't right, and rewrapped it in new harness tape. So now it's ready to go back on the bike in theory. There are still a few issues I've got because I'm not quite sure what certain wires do and where they should go, but I'm sure we'll work it out as we go along. So first step then is to strip all the bodywork off the bike, and then we can begin. Right, so that's all the wires from the front of the loom in the headlamp. I'm now going to add this great big thing here, this big connector, which is from the dashboard. So a bit of a squeeze, but we'll manage it. There we go. God knows how there's going to be room in here for the headlamp as well, but I'm sure it'll work itself out eventually. Right, so with that done then, that looks pretty good. So I'll move on and do this side. Right, so in the middle of the bike, the wiring harness splits into several branches, and I'm pretty sure this branch here goes this way. It goes to or from the points, and also to and from the fuse box, which I've not fitted yet for a very good reason, which I'll come back to later on. So on this side, we've got a couple of branches here, which go to things like the rectifier, the starter, solenoid, and the flasher unit. Oh, and this little black box here is quite interesting because it's a safety feature, quite advanced for 1978. What it does is, if you're riding the bike and the rear brake fails, it causes a light to flash on the dashboard, so it's quite clever. Unfortunately, the little mounting for it's broken. Not to worry, because I got some of that 3M very strong double-sided tape, and normally it fits here on the front of the battery box, so I'm just going to stick it on there and we should be fine. Right, so let's carry on. And here is that fuse box which I mentioned earlier on. So there's the fuses, just 3 of them, and the wires that come out of it. Now, when I took this off the bike, this area here was wrapped in layers and layers of insulation tape. So when I unwrapped it, I found this mess, these weird cheap connectors, God knows why. So I thought, right, no problem, I don't really want to fit that back on the bike. It's a crucial component of the wiring, don't want to use that. So I went off and I bought a nice new one, which is still available. However, when I compared it with this one, I found a problem. And the problem is that here's the new multi-pin connector, here's the old one. As you can see, they're different. They're different. Oh my God. So someone in the past has cut off this original connector and changed it for some reason. God knows why. And the other half of this connector is attached to the wiring loom. Right, so I pulled out all the pins from the old block connector, and my plan was to do the same thing with this new block connector and then swap them over. But as you can see, the pins are different sizes, but that's okay because I found another brand new block connector here in my little box, which happens to have the exact same pin size as the original connector, like so. So all I've got to do is, I first thought, cut those off, reattach the thin ones, and away we go using this old block connector. But it turns out that my new block connector is identical to that one, which I didn't know at the time. So I can now get rid of all that. I don't need it anymore. Put it in the bin. And what I've got to do now is remove this block connector from the wires. It's not a pain to do. You just got to put a sharp point down here and press in the little pin that holds it in place and push it down through. Real pain to do. Then I'll cut them off and reattach these. These are the same size as those on the original connector. Once I've done that, I can then use this block connector and it'll match up with that on the wiring harness, thank God. So I'm quite lucky there that I had this particular block connector in a little box So that's what's next, and it's going to take ages because these are very fiddly things to do, very awkward to see what's going on, particularly with my poor eyesight. So yeah, it might take a while. And that's why wiring up a bike can take a hell of a long time. And so my next task is to sort out this problem with the lower shock mount. This is a 14mm hole, but this is a 10mm hole, so if you put the 10mm bolt in, it's all loose. Therefore I managed to find off eBay these sleeves, and they're hopefully the perfect size. I think they're something like 14mm outer and 10.1 inner. And sure enough, I put them in and they fit just fine. Unfortunately, they're a bit long. I think these are 30mm, and what I need is about 18mm. So just have to cut these down to about 18mm, and hopefully that's this problem solved. It's actually amazing how many things you can find on eBay if you look long enough. I was amazed to find the perfect size of these sleeves for what I need. And so with the lower shock mount sorted out, I've now fitted new chromed acorn nuts, the correct ones, for the top mount, which also then allows me to fit the pillion grab handles. Not that I'll ever have a pillion, but the chrome's not bad on this one, but the other one on the left hand side is pretty bad. So again, sometime in the winter I'll take these off along with the other chrome parts and get them all re-chromed. And so with the problem with the rear shock mount sorted out, I'm now back to working on the wiring harness. So I've just fitted a new fuse box with its newly modified multi-pin connector, and I've also just finished wiring up the rear indicators and the rear brake light. Now the rear lamp is not standard, it's from a Kawasaki ZR7S, so the wiring is slightly different. But the good news is the colour scheme is exactly the same on a modern Kawasaki than it is on my old 1978 Z650, so I guess Kawasaki don't change things very often. So now then I've got to move on and work on the wiring at the front of the bike, and that's not so simple. And so as you can see, looking into the headlamp shell, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? There's loads and loads of wires, multi-pin connectors and so on, and I'm pretty sure I know which one does what, but I've got a couple here that I'm not sure about. I've also got a wire that's been cut, not sure why. That was cut long before I bought the bike, so I'm still investigating what to do about that wire and some of the other wires as well. I do need to now add a couple of wires, earth wires, to these indicators because they're completely rubber mounted, and therefore they need a separate earth wire. You can buy them, but they're about £15 each, so I just made some. I've got some over here somewhere. Oh, it's over there, so I just made some and hopefully they'll work just fine. So yeah, it's going to be a long tedious process, but the good news is I've just received a new box from Z Power, and in it I've got some pretty cool parts all ready to go back on the bike. And here is that box. So I've got a gasket here that I need. I've got some Renthal grips, that's fine. Here are the 4 cheap K&N knockoffs from China for the air filters. Here is a chrome cover, a new chrome cover for the starter motor. What else have I got here? I've got all kinds of things. Obviously got some new fasteners and so on, but oh yeah, down there's some more things, but the one thing I want to fit right now is what's in this box here, and this is a new front mudguard for the bike that I've been waiting for quite a while because it was out of stock. I've also got here some special tubing. That's for the overflow of the carbs, because obviously the bike didn't have any, so I've got that ordered from Z Power. So yeah, pretty good stuff. So let's get this new mudguard unwrapped and get it on the bike. And so there's a new mudguard on the bike. Now at the moment it's only held in place by 2 bolts because I've run out of suitable sized hex bolts, but we'll soon sort that out. Now this mudguard is not from a Kawasaki Z650, it's actually from a Kawasaki Z900 LTD. And the reason why I fitted it is because it's by far the best looking front mudguard of all the various Zs that were made in the 70s and 80s. It's actually quite a common change to make if you're no Z to fit this particular model of mudguard, because it's just better looking. It's a bit shorter, a bit sharper looking, so yeah, I'm pretty happy to have that on the bike. Right, so it's now getting quite late, so I think I'll stop for today, but we'll carry on in the morning when I'll carry on with this horrible wiring job, and hopefully we'll have it done by the end of tomorrow. And now here we are, it's the next day, and it's a beautiful day, the hottest, sunniest day we've had so far this year. What's also great is that I think I've cracked the problem of this damn wiring harness, at least this bit here. It didn't help that the wiring had been messed about with, and this bike is from America and the wiring's slightly different from a European model, but eventually I think I've cracked it, and hopefully now the switches will work on the bike. I still have a couple of issues with a couple of wires here in the headlamp shell, but there's only one way to find out if they work or not, or what they do, and that's by putting power to the bike for the first time and seeing what works and what doesn't work, and then tracking down the problems and debugging it. So that's what's next, but that will have to wait a little while, because this morning I was quite sick of doing wiring, so I got busy and I've now polished this Brembo brake lever, because originally it was black, didn't match with the bare alloy lever on the other side, so I've now polished it and got it back on the bike. I've also fitted new rental grips and also some bar ends, and these are from Oxford Products. I happen to have those left over, so on they went on the bike. So yeah, it's coming together slowly but surely. However, just about half an hour ago I got a delivery, an important delivery, so let's go and see what that's all about. And the new delivery concerns this, the exhaust system that was fitted on the bike when I got it. Now this is a Kirker system, not a Gurkha, a Kirker system, and I was planning to reuse it on the bike. But as you can see, it's pretty rusty here and there, so my plan was to take it apart and have it slightly coated or painted in some way, some sort of high-tech, high-temperature coating, and then get it back on the bike. The problem I found, which quite surprised me, was that the header pipes are welded into the collector here, and that makes life a lot more complicated because you can't access down here in all the gaps where the rust is the worst. So that would make it very difficult, I would say impossible, to blast it and recoat it the way I'd like to. So sadly, this Kirker system isn't going back on the bike, and instead I bought this, a brand new stainless steel exhaust system from Delcovic, similar to the one I fitted to my 1170 project. So let's get the box open and see what it looks like. I'm hopeful actually that this should fit without any problems at all, because the bike is pretty standard, so there's no reason why it wouldn't go on without any great problems, unlike my other bikes, which of course are heavily modified, which meant that the exhaust system had to be cut and welded and changed and so on, but hopefully not for this particular model. So here we have the stainless steel header pipes, that's fine, some bracketry, that's fine. Oh, what's this? Don't know what that is. Might be yeah, what's that little Delcovic box? What could be in there? Let's have a look. Oh, swing exhaust sealant. Very kind of them. Right, and then we move that out of the way. In this box here, little polystyrene box, we've got the silencer and no doubt the collector. So let's get that open next. Let me put that down. And we'll get this open. Don't want to drop anything. There is and the stainless steel silencer Delcovic. Quite light actually, quite surprising. Now hopefully the collector is somewhere as well. Let's look in here. Yes, yeah, the collector's right there, all wrapped up. So I can't wait to see that on the bike. But I'll have to wait a few hours because I've got to go out now, unfortunately, and yeah, I can't miss that particular appointment. So we'll carry on when I've unwrapped that and got it on the bike in a few hours' time. These are very strong. Phew, that wasn't easy. And so there's the Delcavik system on the bike. It went on quite easily, apart from getting those damn springs on the exhaust system, because they're very strong springs and quite difficult to get on, but we got there in the end. Right, well, I've just had a delivery of even more parts for the bike, so let's see what I've got and get those parts on the bike. And the first part is in here, and this is a chain, hopefully. So let's get this open. Just a sec, give me one hand. Let's have a look. Right, so this was cost wise, I think it was something like, yeah, £53, so not very expensive at all. This bike doesn't really need some fancy exotic chain. So what I've got is one of these X1R Export Series heavy duty X-ring chain by whatever, so not particularly an expensive one, but not rubbish either, so hopefully that should last quite a long time, given that I don't tend to ride in the winter anymore. So let's get that open and get it on the bike. Right, so there's the chain on the bike. I've now got to loosen off the back axle and move the wheel back to get the tension just right. And so now I've got the left hand side and right hand side adjusters just the same at 11.5 millimeters, and the chain tension is about right. That said, of course, being a new chain, I will check it after I've done a few miles on the bike. Oh, almost forgot, I've got to add a split pin here on the rear spindle. This, by the way, is a stainless steel split pin to go along with my stainless steel nut. So there we go. Tap down. And then we can use a pair of pliers just to open it out a little bit. This is actually a giant split pin, a bit too big really, I don't know. There we go. There we go. To get some bigger pliers, I think. This thing's a very big, very thick split pin. There we go. Yeah, I might guess we'll get some bigger pliers to do this. Oh wait, clicked off its axle stand. But anyway, that's going nowhere. And so let's see what's next. And now the custom brake line I ordered from Hell has just arrived and it fits no problem. However, on the lower yoke here we've got these two threaded bosses, and they used to be used to mount this thing, and this is the front brake line splitter, which also includes this thing here, which is a switch to operate the rear brake. So I don't need that anymore. So instead, I'm just going to make a little cover, a little aluminium cover to go over there and also keep the brake line where it belongs. This is made from 10mm aluminium plate. I've done that because I want to round off the edges so it looks pretty good and matches the curve of the yokes, and also by curving it there's less chance of the brake line fretting against the corner of the brake line. So pretty boring stuff. I just drilled 2 holes in it, and now I'm just going to shape it and file it and hopefully it'll look okay once it's on the lower yoke. And so there's the keeper stroke plate on the bike. I've now rounded off all the edges, and in particular at the back I've given a bit of a hollow to give more room for the new brake line. So with all the rounded off edges, hopefully there shouldn't be any problems with any fretting with the new brake line. This is okay, but it's a bit boring. So what I might do when I get time is perhaps shape it a bit more, maybe make it a bit thinner in the middle, like a kind of a figure of 8 shape. I'm not sure yet. I'll think about it and decide later on. And so finally for today, I fitted the tackle cable and the speedo cable. I'd like to also fit the clutch cable, but I can't do that yet because over here I've been working on the sprocket cover, which is pretty bad actually. I've been polishing this for quite a while now and it still needs a lot more work, so that'll have to wait for another day because I'm sick of polishing right now. So yeah, the bike's coming along. I'd hoped by now to try and start the bike, but the wiring's been such a pain, it's taken a lot longer than I expected. So now I've got a battery on charge, so when it's charged up I'm going to put it on the bike and see what works and what doesn't. Fingers crossed everything works as it should. That said, of course, the engine won't fire up yet because I've not yet sorted out the problem with the points and the condensers, but I'll do that in the morning, hopefully if the weather holds out. So we'll carry on in the morning. Right, so now here we are, it's next day. It's raining a little bit off and on, so I can't be too long, but hopefully I can change over these condensers on the points. So I've got my new condensers here, and hopefully it won't be too bad, but we'll see. A bit scary, but I'm sure we can work it out. So there's a little screw here that holds it into place, hidden away behind that green wire. So let's see if we can get that off there. And that comes out okay. I guess it's never seen rain, so it shouldn't be too corroded. So what happens now? Right, so there we go. So now to undo them, there's tiny little screws here, which I guess I've got to undo. They look like about, I don't know, 4mm or 5mm. So let me go and get a suitable spanner and hopefully we can get them undone. Right, so tried a 5mm spanner, but that's a bit too small. And a 6mm spanner is a bit too big. A bit too big, that one. But luckily, for some reason, I've got a 5.5mm spanner and that seems to be just right. So hopefully we can get these things undone, these tiny little nuts. I'm hoping this is going to be just a bolt on. I was told that I perhaps had to solder it, but maybe not, we'll see. Let's get in hand loose now. Alright, so they're loose. Loosey-goosey. Let's have a look. Will that just pull out? Oh, it will, thank God for that. Yeah, that's great. I wasn't sure about that, but it looks like I've just got to yeah, pull it out. Now this little bit of fur here, this little bit of weird foam, or whatever it is, that's used to lubricate the points as it spins round. This actually looks quite corroded actually, so I'll just take that off and put it on the new piece and put some oil on it, so some light oil, and hopefully that will be happy in the future. Let's get that off there. And so now it's time to fit the new condensers. The wire goes above this bracket. Bit of a squeeze. Come on, I don't want to trap it. Come on. There we go. Like so. And now these go wherever they go. Green to green, I guess. That goes in there. Like so. And that one goes in there like so. Oh, well, that's pretty easy. A lot easier than I expected actually. I was told, or I read somewhere, that you had to melt the solder and resolder on the wires, but it seems not. Perhaps on older bikes you do, but not on this particular one. So that's great. So now I've got to take my 5.5mm little spanner and tighten these up. Well, that wasn't too bad, was it? So now I can refit the cover, but not yet because I've got a brand new gasket to put on here. This one's seen better days, it's all broken, so I've got to remove this, scrape it all off very carefully, and well, there you go, look, it's falling off now. and yeah, get it replaced, and then that's the points problem hopefully solved. Oh, and also actually I think I'll put some 3-to-1 oil on this end of the crank here where the points are moving against it. It looks a bit rusty, it's actually not been used for an awful long time. And next it's new plug leads and new plugs. And now with the new plugs and leads in place, it's finally time to see if the bike will start. So to that end, I've got all my leads here. I've got a big battery ready to go. So I get everything set up, only to find a rather big problem. A very embarrassing problem. And that problem is I can't find the bloody key. I thought it was in the bike, it's not. I looked in the garage where I normally keep my keys. It's not there. I've just been spending about an hour turning my garage upside down trying to find this damn key, and I can't find it. Chances are I put it somewhere safe, either in the garage or in the house, but I have no memory whatsoever of doing so. I guess that's what happens when you get old. So sadly, that first attempt at starting the bike, we'll have to wait until I find the damn key. Now, if for some reason I can't find the key, it's not the end of the world, because every lock on a bike is stamped in with a number, a unique number, not that unique, but maybe a 5 or 6 digit number. And if you can find that number and specify the bike, you can get replacement keys made. I've done that before for a really old bike from the 70s, and it worked quite well. There's a couple of companies out there who have all the patterns and can make you the appropriate key. But I'd rather not get to that point, because to find out the number on this lock, I want to take away all of the instrumentation and get at the barrel to see what number is stamped in there. So for now then, I'm going to have to go and spend yet more time emptying the garage, and believe me, there's a lot of crap in my garage, trying to find this damn key. So that's a bit embarrassing really, but never mind. So this video's now quite long enough probably, and we're at the end now of week 11, and my target was to get the bike finished by the end of week 12, which is next week, the end of April. So forecast weather wise, it's going to be quite bad I think next few days, so I'm not sure how much I can do, but I've still got a few more things to do, a few little jobs like polishing the chain cover at the front here, the sprocket cover, which needs a lot of work, and little bits and bobs. So yeah, it's coming along, but God, I was so annoyed when I couldn't find the bloody key. But I guess that's what happens when you get old and forgetful, so there you go. So anyway, that's it for now, and hopefully next week we will get the bike firing up for the first time. So for now then, thanks for watching, and cheers.